I was 16, I received a text message from a random number, and I was genuinely confused whenever I read it, and it said, "Hello, my name is Sergeant Blank with the U.S. military. We were contacting you because we think that you'd be a great fit to enlist." At first, I thought it was funny. It was lighthearted. I joked around, "I'm going to war." Of course, not true. But the more I thought about it, I asked myself, why was the military trying to reach out to me, a 16-year-old, reaching out through my school and on my high school campus? And not only me, but the other peers at my school. And so that's exactly what I'm going to be talking to you guys about today, is how unethical the tactics are that are used by the U.S. military to recruit high school students in America. And now, although we're all in college, this may not directly apply to us, these same tactics are still used to bait college students into enlisting into the military. Of course, unless you're gung-ho about going in the military and that's your own choice. But these manipulation tactics are still prevalent in our age demographic as well. And so the three things I'm going to be talking about is how they take advantage of the youth of high school students. Secondly, how they exploit students' needs for financial compensation for college. And lastly, their selective, or I guess how they target lower income in minority populated high schools for recruitment. So the first thing, teens are obviously very, very impressionable. Our brains are not developed. We all know how immature we were in high school. And that's basically exactly what Terry J. Allen writes about. Now, Terry J. Allen is a writer and editor for a economical and social magazine where he conquers topics such as military recruitment. And so he writes about how our prefrontal cortex, which is basically the reasoning part of our brain, or as he says, the area of sober second thought, is not developed when we are teenagers. Moreover, that part doesn't develop until we are in our early to mid 20s. Therefore, it's unethical for military recruiters to take advantage of that. These students can't think through these decisions. And it's to some extent signing your life away without knowing what you're getting yourself into. And not only this, but because of how impressionable the youth is, the military is able to glamorize enlisting a lot. And so that's what William Ayers talks about. Now, he's a scholar and a professor at the University of Illinois, specializing in education. And so throughout his academic journal article that I read, he went through and got testimonies from people who had enlisted in the military at a very young age. And one that stuck out was Tyson Johnson II. And he talked about how a military recruiter came to him. He had no interest. He didn't know anything about it. And by the end of the conversation, he was like, "Cool uniforms. I get to jump out of a plane." And he enlisted at the end of that conversation. And he did not know what he was getting himself into. He was young age, and he wasn't able to fully think through and commit to that decision because, again, he was so young, and military recruiters are very aware of that. And that's why they want to go to high schools, to take advantage of that. And so now, secondly, military recruiters exploit students' needs for college compensation. And so I've heard this so many times. You need to get an education, go to the military. They'll pay for it. And while, yes, that is true, it's not all that it's cracked up to be. And so the Central Committee of Conscientious Objectors, which is a nonprofit organization that writes about the reality of enlistment in the military in order to educate people on it, they write about the Montgomery GI Bill. And so basically what this is the military, you serve X amount of time, we give you X amount of money as compensation. And so reading about that, it talks about how you basically get paid a certain amount of money to serve for 36 months. And now at the time that this article was written, it was in 2003, they got $44K. Which obviously the cost of tuition has gone up since then. Also, the cost of compensation has gone up. So the Texas.gov education website, this quick little statistic about the Montgomery bill is that now it's 36 months of enlistment or active military duty for $77K. And yeah, sounds like a lot, but that's over the course of 3 years. $77K for 3 years, and you get it in certain payments. And so I went to a college that would have covered maybe a year and a half. And realistically, with the price of college tuition today, it's genuinely still not enough. And not only that, but that doesn't even cover what happens if you get discharged or dishonorable discharge. You have no guarantee that you will get the compensation that you were promised, which is obviously a huge red flag. And so lastly, military recruiters are very selective in what high schools they go to based off of the demographic. And so firstly, they like to target poorer communities, which, as we just talked about, they praise the compensation and you can get your education. And so in these lower income communities, in these lower income high schools, for a lot of them, that's their only option. Parents cannot financially put their children through college, and they see this as an opportunity to get their education. Therefore, these military recruiters keep going back to these impoverished areas because they know they're going to be able to have more people enlist. And so, as we know, poverty and race go hand in hand in America. And so you have these lower income communities, which is usually consisted of minorities who fall into that same trap. And so again, they target lower income and minority schools. And so the example that is given by Ayers, which I cited earlier, is how he compared two schools, same year, in the same general area. However, the demographic of students and the funding was very different. So in the white-dominated, higher-funded school, they had 7 military recruiters come over the course of a year, but they had over 150 universities come. However, at a school within the relative same area, different demographic of almost 80% Hispanic, they only had, they only had 10 university visits. So these students in lower income areas are not getting those options. Therefore, the military recruiters understand that they are their best option. And these students end up getting themselves into something that they genuinely aren't prepared for when there were other outlets, because military recruiters take advantage of that. And so overall, the military uses these unethical tactics to prey on students' age, financial situations, and their racial/economic demographics in order to boost military recruitment.